But we are going to video the events today. I'll put them on the website. Everything that we discuss. We've got very kind Patrick, who's one of the democratic officers from the council, has offered to take minutes. So every question, every answer, everything's going to be posted on my website. And also just general information as I learn it over the weeks that come. I'm going to make sure it's all there, and I'm going to keep having meetings like this around the constituency. Next date is, I think, 16th of July. I'm going to hold a meeting hopefully in Duxford, but again, that will be on the website. So this is the start. Equally for the people in the gallery, hello. Sorry if you can't ask questions from us, I'm afraid. You'll have to bang on the window if you don't agree, I suppose. But at the end of today, again, if there's anything that hasn't been asked or you haven't heard the answer you want, we're going to have sort of question sheets at the door downstairs as people leave. Just fill them in with your contact details and your question. So if there's anything at all that you've not heard, then please, we will come back to you. So, firstly, we'd like to say thank you not just to Patrick, but everybody from the council who's lent me their facilities today. And, this is when we are great as a community and we come together to share our concerns and to talk about things that are worrying us. Now, first thing to say is absolutely everybody's welcome. I don't care how you voted. If you are an inner or an outer, we are together. We are a community. So, thank you everybody for coming. So, the purpose of today is, as an MP, I'm used to receiving a lot of emails, but I have never received so many emails in my life. I'm not exaggerating when I say on the Friday morning, every day is merging into one for me at the moment, the Friday morning after the referendum, to say that they were coming in roughly 2 every minute, gives you a sense of just how many people were worried, had questions, and trying to get in touch with me, and it just hasn't been possible for me to reply to everyone individually. So that's what today is about, for me to hear your concerns, for us to discuss things, and for me to tell you what I know, and also what I don't know. Because an awful lot of this, of course, is a very fast-moving feast at the moment, not helped by members of my party desperately grappling for power, which is making things a little more interesting. As I say, any questions we don't have the answer to, we will take away and do our best to answer them, and they'll go on the website too. So, what do I know? First thing to say, we should have a new Prime Minister in place by the 2nd of September. The party and the election committee have decided to make that process as swift as possible, because clearly that's not helping with the uncertainty. And I can't actually think, I never thought in my life I'd be telling a big bunch of people when the next Prime Minister will be in place, but there you go, to show us new career opportunities. So we will have a new Prime Minister by 2nd. And the first thing I'd like to do is just get that white elephant in the room out there. The first referendum stands. It has to. I know a lot of people have asked about, well, Heidi, the margin was so tight, the margin of error is too small, or we didn't reach thresholds of turnout. I know, in South Cambs, we should be very proud. We had, I think, the 17th highest turnout in the whole of the country. 81.2%, I think the turnout was, and we voted 60-70% and here 60% to remain. But it has to stand. There's nothing in the Referendum Act that says there should be thresholds or margins. One vote over is a vote to leave. If you'll forgive me, I'll take questions at the end. I've only got about 10 minutes worth of things I wanted to say, and then I will take questions from people, if that's okay. And the reason I think it has to stand, aside from the technicalities, as I explained to, I went to visit 2 primary schools yesterday morning, and they were all quite upset, the children there, and they said, well, how do you know, they've got it wrong, we have to challenge it. But I said to them, imagine you've got 100 friends, and 52 of you want to do something, and the other 48 don't. Do the 52 children have less of a voice than the 48? No. That, I'm afraid, is democracy. Every single voice is equal, and I don't believe we can challenge that. Now, we'll come on later in my remarks about whether I think there's opportunity for a second referendum, because I know that's an option that people have been looking at. And something else that's been mentioned an awful lot in your correspondence to me is this question about, well, is a referendum advisory? Should it be advisory rather than legislative? Well, yes, in the eye of the law, it is advisory. And you'd be delighted to know there are constitutional lawyers up and down the country now, as we speak, rubbing their hands together, trying to work out how they can advise as one side or the other of the constitutional argument. And it is advisory, but every vote counts. given that one of our biggest concerns is this issue of cohesion and how, even across dinner tables on Sunday, grandfather and granddaughter are going to have a conversation, we need to rebuild that. And I don't think we do that by saying that your vote doesn't count. And I don't think we will bring people back together by saying that. And frankly, I think we'd have a riot on our hands if we tried to tell 48% of the population that their vote doesn't matter. I think we'd have a riot, and that will get us into deep trouble. So Article 50, so that's the starting gun, if you like, that starts the clock for 2 years of negotiations. And that's something else that people have asked me about. Well, Heidi, how does that start? Who starts that process? Should MPs have a role in starting that process? And again, constitutionally, it will be normal for the Prime Minister to put it in writing to Europe that they want to start that process. And, there's a huge petition gathering momentum at the moment about whether MPs should debate this, put a motion to say that MPs should have a voice in that. Well, this is the thing. Any debate that comes out of a motion is not isn't legal. Legislatively binding. It's just a motion. It would need another Act of Parliament. Indeed, if we had a second referendum, it would need another Act of Parliament. So we can debate, we can petition, we can do all of those things, but it doesn't change what that first referendum result means, nor does it change when and if and how and whether we will invoke Article 50. The Prime Minister has been very clear. He thinks, and I understand why, it's a decision for the new Prime Minister to decide when to start that Article 50, to start that starting gun. And I suppose that's where we have to start getting into the debate about whether we do that and when we do that. And it gets you into the language then of the second referendum idea and whether we do that. And I suppose this is where I'm telling myself and I'm urging you, we mustn't be emotional in this. This is the toughest poker game that we will ever play as a country. Because ultimately, whatever happens, we have to get the best deal, the best result, not just for South Cambs, but for the country. So the risk we take, in my view, if we delay Article 50 to negotiate first, see what the deal looks like, pass a piece of legislation and put it to the public again in a second referendum, that's fine, and I'm open to that, and I think over the weeks that come we'll have a clearer view as to whether that's the right way forward. But the risk with that is we're giving our best poker hand, we're showing it to Europe. Because we're saying we might be prepared to back out and change our minds. And if we really want to go in there and negotiate for the very best deal we can, then it's pros and cons. We need to weigh that up and decide whether that's a risk worth taking. Now, again, as I said, it's a matter for the new Prime Minister. And on Monday, we have a series of beauty parades, hustings, whatever you might like to call them. So it's a question I'll be putting to all the candidates. What's their view on this negotiations game of poker? What do they think is the best thing to do? What would they do? And I'm quite happy to share that information. I'll get it on my website as quickly as I can. But it's also not just the Prime Minister that will be involved, I think, in whether, or determining whether we negotiate before we press that Article 50 starting gun. The EU are going to have a big voice in that as well. Nobody else can trigger it other than us, but in terms of whether they will allow us to negotiate before or after, they have a say in that too. So that's why I think we need to take emotion out of it and just steady ourselves and just let the situation evolve a little bit. So much will depend on who that new Prime Minister is. So much will depend on his or her team that they put in to start these negotiations. Because it's about relationships. I don't care how complicated and legally technical this situation is, it's about relationships. I'm going to be really interested in watching the body language of the big names in Europe, whether it's Merkel or Juncker or Donald Tusk, whether they've still got their fingers in their ears or not. Because those relationships and how much they want to do a deal with us. Because at the moment, I sense they're feeling very hurt and saying to help you. And that's what I'm reading in the situation. So us choosing the right Prime Minister, the best person to rebuild those relationships, I think we need to wait and see how that evolves a little bit. And equally, let's see how the markets prepare themselves already. The pound bouncing back, we are starting to steady the ship a little bit. So let's keep an eye on the markets. Let's see what businesses do. Are they going to continue investing? scientific research? Is it still going to come to us in Cambridgeshire? Let's just see how this pans out, because we could be worrying unnecessarily. And I think to make a decision now on emotion and fear and worry would not serve us in the long term. Because Europe will be watching too. Make no mistake, our moves, they will be, because this is the Pandora's box we've opened now. We're not, whether you were the biggest Remainer in the world, clearly, pretty much everybody in this room, I'm sure, would agree there are things that we would have liked better with Europe, even if we had voted to remain. So we've opened the Pandora's box. France, Denmark, there are many countries out there who will be watching and thinking, right, what's Britain going to get out of this? How are they going to play it? And you ought to be very conscious of that too, because I'm sure they'll be battening down the hatches and trying to protect their bureaucratic self. So, this is a two-way game of poker, and that's why I think we need to play it very, very carefully. Just a technical matter, a second referendum would need an Act of Parliament. No petition, no debate, no motion in the world. I know David Lammy, one of the Labour MPs, I think, is saying that, essentially we should overturn the first referendum and go straight to second referendum, I think. My understanding is we can't do that, that simply would need an Act of Parliament. Not impossible, but from a technical point of view, that's what we need to do. When I started yesterday building a team of key stakeholders, if you like, in the region. So I called it my EU Keep Calm and Carry On meeting, which we had yesterday afternoon, and I had senior directors from the Cambridge University, Antony Ruskin, and the directors from Addenbrooke's came, somebody from the LEP, from the Federation of Small Businesses. I brought everybody I could think of, people from Cambridgeshire, AstraZeneca, to get their sense of what they needed, what they were worried about, and what things I could do both locally and nationally to support them. And I have to tell you, to a man and a woman, they didn't want a second referendum. Because in their view, for the business community in particular, it's all about certainty. And that's one of the other risks, isn't it? If we say we're going to have another referendum, that period of uncertainty continues for longer, and that's part of this pro and con that we have to think about. But I was pleasantly surprised, I think. I thought perhaps from the scientific, from the university background, they would be more keen to push for it, but actually no, they're pretty pragmatic and recommended to me that they wouldn't push for a second referendum. But it's not just them that will make that decision. So what will the next 2 years look like? Because of course once this starting Article 50 gun goes off, whether it's next week or it's in 6 months' time, assuming it does, there's a 2-year period of negotiation. Typically 2 years. The member states of Europe can vote to extend that if they want to, but thereabouts is 2 years. And the first thing to say is nothing will change. All the things we enjoy about Europe, the free movement of goods, us putting our money into Europe, us receiving funding back, whether for our farmers or for scientific research, and nothing will change at all. Cambridge University have already written, the Vice-Chancellor has already written out to all his staff and students, saying anybody who's allocated a place at the university for the next 2 years, nothing to worry about, that will continue. Funding for Horizon 2020, some of the biggest scientific research projects across Europe, funded by Europe, are still inviting applications, so it really is business as normal. European health insurance card, if you go on holiday, they're still covered, you're fine. And free movement of people, of course, and that's both ways. That continues, nothing to change. So what must we do? And when I say we, I mean us and also the country as politicians. I think we need to continue being very open and sharing information. As soon as I hear anything, I will get it on my website. We'll get it on my website as fast as we possibly can. If you don't have access to the internet, feel free to ring up the office. We'll try and provide updated information as soon as we can. But I want you to know exactly what conversations are being had in Parliament, who's saying what, which candidates, where we are with the runners and the riders for the new Prime Minister role, because of course that person will determine an awful lot of this. We need to share, and the group I started yesterday with Cambridge University, etc., we're going to meet on a regular basis. We're meeting again next Friday, and we're going to keep listening, particularly to those sounds within the business community and the academic community. Is anything changing? Are we losing jobs? Is AstraZeneca staying? All that kind of stuff. So far it's been very calm, but we need to keep our ear to the ground on that. Hate crimes. Touch wood, I've heard of nothing so far in South Cambridgeshire, but I urge you all to be vigilant. You hear anything, you see anything, we all have a role to play in this. Unacceptable. If you even get a sniff of people who are here from Europe or further abroad in the world, make them welcome. They are so welcome here. And Claire, wherever Claire is, has some safety pins. Is Claire in somewhere?
She may have got
Oh, she's outside, okay. The safety pin is the brooch of choice now. I don't know if you knew that. We've all got to wear safety pins to show that we're welcoming to immigrants and everyone that's here. So if you can find a safety pin, I'll find one on the inside of my jacket to speak to dry cleaners probably. Silly little symbols like that. I think the council here actually passed a motion, or are going to pass a motion, have you done it yet? On Tuesday, is it then? You're proposing a motion that, would you like to, David, give me the gist of the motion?
We haven't got the exact wording of it yet, but it'll be along. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. It'll be along general lines of condemning racism, hate crime, and asking the council to oppose it in its policies, which it does already. I mean, I hasten to add that the council really has very robust policies covering its members and staff on racial discrimination issues, and we want to extend that to the wider community as well.
Lovely. So David is one of our most experienced councillors here, and just for benefit upstairs, sorry, the council are going to pass a motion. They're just drafting the wording now to say that racism is unacceptable. And it's a public voice, it's a voice of leadership saying that we don't accept that. But we all have a role to play in that. Everybody is welcome. Let's make everybody feel welcome. Well, I hope that they are. And we all have a role to play in helping rebuild rifts in our communities, whether that's across your dining table, in your villages, wherever it might be. However you voted, it doesn't matter. We are here, we rub shoulder by shoulder, we're here together, and this is our country together, and we all, as I say, have a role to play in that. I'm going to continue with the team I mentioned, with the universities, the academic and the business community, making sure that we keep listening to each other. And things that I will do, so as soon as I can, I want to seek assurances from the new Prime Minister, whoever that is, that those who are here from Europe can stay here. Here's a staggering statistic I learned yesterday. You'll be familiar, of course, within the NHS we have a lot of workers from all countries around the world. The national average is roughly about 6%. In Addenbrooke's we have 11%. So we need to do a serious amount of risk analysis about what that means to our local economy, our local provision of services, if we were to lose those people. So they're the assurances I want to see from the new Prime Minister. Other assurances, any EU funding that we've enjoyed so far for our farmers, for research, for academia, that needs to continue to be backfilled by us in the UK if needs be. We can't lose that funding. Promoting Cambridgeshire, we are open for business, never mind the noise that's going on in the EU around us. We are still here, open for business. The brains are still here, they haven't gone anywhere. And I want to make sure that our brand continues to be very, very strong. And that's working across party and the different constituencies, particularly Daniel's, Ickenham and City, because he and I work the closest together and make sure that we continue doing that. It's that ongoing dialogue with academics and business and scientific community, and making sure that as far as is possible, and I think we're in safe hands with Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, we need to maintain that financial stability. And something that I personally will watch for, any budget amendments that may come forward, it is vital that we remember the most vulnerable in our society. Because quite often when we're cutting the pennies, they're the ones that feel the pain of that. So that's a personal guarantee from me that I will scrutinise any budget changes to see how they might affect those people. And we need to make sure that when we come to negotiate, that we get what we need. To me, that is, for our area in particular, that's essential free movement of people when it comes to skills and brains and research and funding. It's access to the single market, tariff-free trade in whatever form that might take. But throughout all of this, we must be aware of how the people, not everybody voted to remain, a lot of people voted to leave as well, and we must at all times respect their feelings and how they're feeling about this. We have to find a new route forward that as best as is possible pleases everybody. And that's going to be hard, but we must never forget that there are two sides to this argument. Because what I'm very conscious of is I think there are an awful lot of people who voted leave who are feeling very wounded at the moment because they're being tarred with a pretty horrid brush that is not appropriate nor is it right for them. And that comes back to us building our, rebuilding rifts in our communities. And I think the thing that gives me the most hope is I'm acutely aware of how this area contributes to the UK economy, and by default to the Europe and global economy too. So when I hear Sadiq Khan speaking for the City of London saying that London should be at the forefront of any negotiations in Europe, well, so should we. You know, we are so much the reason that the EU wanted to keep us here. So if ever we had a voice, and ever that voice needed to be heard, it's now, and I'll make sure that we're at the centre when those negotiations start. So that's a little bit of background. I don't know if that's been useful. Might have shot a few elephants, made some more white elephants arrive. But that's what I know. That's everything I know at the moment. So probably now it's appropriate to take a little